This is Mercedes Warwick with My Naked Truth, the spirituality of cancer and the mindfulness of healing. So, I don't know where to begin this. I know where I'm going with it, but I don't know how to begin with this. In September of 2016, I was very sick. I had been coughing and ended up in Sedona, Arizona. I facilitated a retreat for 5 days and came home. That in itself was a story of trust and faith. But I got home, and 3 days later I was in University Medical Center here in Las Vegas with fluid on the lungs and a breast that clearly was not healthy. People kept asking me, and so how did you get to this point? You seem to be intelligent, and why wouldn't you have gone to the doctor? Which is a whole other story. However, I do want to make it very clear that I did not go to the doctor because I was attempting to heal thyself. And of course I was doing things with diet and nutrition and my energy work. And matter of fact, that's probably what kept me going for as long as it did. But clearly there was something, my breast was disfigured, I guess, for a way of putting it. And clearly, there was something not right, not healthy. So, before I go any further with people saying, but you're a healer and you did this, or having any assumptions that I was attempting to heal myself, that is probably, that is just not true. There are times, God created doctors for a reason. There are times that you have to go into the system. There was some personal, financial, spiritual, mental, fear, all kinds of different things played into me getting to stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. So that needs to be just understood as we go through this together. There was a piece of me that was, when I talk through the guidance, we talk about the fear of dying, the fear of living. I wasn't afraid to die, I was afraid to live. Life wasn't really, on the surface everybody's looking at me and thinking, she's helping people, she's got it all together and everything, but I was very, very miserable. Very, very sad, I think. On various levels of my life. So, we laugh about it now. It's about, a year and a few months after, and we kind of look back and laugh about it, but I was laying in bed and had the crew, you'll hear me talk about the crew, my beloveds, my very treasured friends, my sister, and sitting in that hospital bed that first day, going to the emergency room, and ending up at University Medical Center. The day before the October 1st shooting, I might add, so I was actually in UMC during that time, and I will always be grateful to the professional people that took care of me in that most tragic of circumstances, and they just never missed a beat. My care was exemplary, and I will always say that. I had just incredible, incredible, incredible experience that was so God-laden. You know, when we talk about the mind of God and people just looking at you, regardless of your circumstance or your ability to pay, which was one of my big fears. And then in the midst of this human, just, absurdity, just this senseless act of violence, and these people, these professionals, are taking care of me. So the crew is there, and the lights are off, and the TV's off, and I'm laying in the quiet. And we would... I was really weak, really very, very, very weak. I had 1,000 cc's of, or not cc's, what do you call those things? Milliliters of fluid in my lung, my left lung. I was breathing with the assistance of oxygen. At that point, I hadn't been officially diagnosed, but clearly something is not right with that right breast. And I'm in incredible pain because every time I took a breath, it was, the hip bone's connected to the leg bone, thigh bone, so every time I breathed, something was pushing against something, and it was just incredibly, incredibly painful. And I don't even think we're praying or doing anything. I just remember saying, the crew's holding the energy. We do hold energy for each other. So when one of us is, in this case, too ill to do for self, then there is the crew. And topic for another day, but because we've been together for so long, they kind of knew what to do. They kind of knew where my belief system was going to be and circumvent me at times. They're coming to give me some morphine, and my sister had said to the guy, whatever you do, don't tell her that it's morphine or anything. Just don't do it because she's not going to accept it. And the first thing he did was come in and say, okay, Miss Warwick, we're going to give you a shot of morphine for the pain. My sister just rolled her eyes. Anyway. But I was in so much pain, I actually accepted it, to everybody's shock. And that moment was sort of a surrendering into the acceptance of, I am really sick. I think up until that point, there was a piece of me that was fighting it. But there just wasn't any, I was too weak. There wasn't any resistance. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to die. Like I said, we were laughing about it. We laugh about it now, but it's like, okay, you can take me. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to die. I'm not afraid to die. The nurses would come into the room and they'd ask if we wanted the lights on the TV, and I would say no. And I would be with my guidance. And I would say, I am ready to go. And they would say, just be. And I'd say, but I'm ready to go. And they would say, just be here now. I was so weak. And my lungs were affected. So the one thing, and I would say to God, why did you take my breath away? That's how I get to you. And I would hear this whisper, literally hear this whisper of guidance saying, just be here now. So eventually, I would drift off to sleep. And I really didn't understand what was going on medically. The weakness and the pain and the draining of my lung, and every 3 days we were taking about 1,000 milliliters of fluid out of that left lung, and my guidance would say, just be here now. So eventually, as I came into a remembering of just who I am and how I live my life, I was like, okay, they're saying just be here now. What does that mean? So I would gently, very shallow breathing, no big inhalations or big exhalations, or no rhythmic breathing, or breathe in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, exhale 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4. None of that was happening. Too weak. Couldn't breathe in deeply. Breathe in, hold, exhale 2, 3. Pause. None of that was happening. Just be meant not even quieting your mind. Letting your mind go where it wanted to go. Letting my mind go where it wanted to go. I'm ready to die. You can take me. Just be, the voices would say. So I came into the realization that just being was just being in the energy of God, or the energy of the life force that was within me. It was like wading my way through all of the pain and all of the present moments, like the room temperature or the darkness or the conversations. And I had my 36 breaths, I had my beads, and I would just literally breathe in and breathe out. And I wouldn't even think about it. I mean, just what I just said, breathe in and breathe out, wasn't even the consciousness. It was literally, I would just move my beads along, not even in the rhythm of my breath. I would just move my beads, and I would get down to this breath, 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 this breath. And sometimes they would be longer, and sometimes they'd be short and rapid. And I didn't even try to diagnose them. Oh, you're in panic and fear. Oh, you're in love with yourself. Oh, because the breath is life. This breath. And eventually I didn't even say this breath or move the beads. I would just hold the guru bead, and I would just be. And eventually, as I was just being, many, many, many days later, the rehab center, just being became an exercise in letting go. And I didn't understand it at the time, but as I was letting go, it was like I was releasing the body and coming into this space that was undefined. It wasn't a healing space or a praying space or a sacred space or Mercedes space. It was just this void, this darkness. Eventually, it was kind of okay to be there. It wasn't a fight to get in and a fight to release the breath and a fight to just be and a fight to release and a fight. There was no fight. It was my first indication that cancer is a journey. It is not a fight. Cancer is an outcome, an effect. It is spiritual. It follows every other spiritual principle that I've ever lived my life by. And it was through just being that I realized that. So by the time I actually got home, back home after almost 5 weeks, October 31st, I realized that I was on not the fight of my life, not the fight to get the stuff out of my body, but I was here to learn. I was on a journey. I came to call those times the learnings. As I got stronger, and that is a relative term when I say stronger, not able to walk up and down my stairs, tethered to a 70-foot long oxygen cord with a oxygen tank that was about a yard high. I didn't get the little portable one. I was dragging that tank around with me. And when I was home, I was tethered to what we affectionately call the cow, the compressor, the oxygen compressor. And my sister would come by and we'd make huge pots of the soup. Too weak to stand up at the kitchen counter. Couldn't stand in the shower. Couldn't take a bath. Stand up at the sink and towel the funk off of my body just enough so I could tolerate the smell of my humanity. My humanness. Just being became my existence. They would say I would be on that oxygen tank for the rest of my life, and later we would laugh because they thought the rest of my life was 6 months or less. I had a doctor who had to change his protocols. Found out that soy is in everything. It's more prevalent than corn. The jury's out if it's whether it's good or bad for you with estrogen. I just chose to say it's not for me. My diet changed. Eventually, my attitude towards living. It's not enough to flip the switch, though, back into living. We don't just, or I didn't get to just flip the switch back. Oh, I decided that I was going to live. I had to make choice upon choice upon choice upon choice upon choice. I chose my way back into living. And the learnings continued, and that's what I'm going to be recording now, are the learnings of that time and the learnings since that time. Just being allowed me to move past what was happening in the physical and enter this void, this darkness, this undefined, indescribable space. And some will say, "Did you connect to God?" And I would say, "I don't know." But I could feel the very essence of myself without any clothing or attitude or preconceptions or acceptance of other people's opinions, because there I was on the threshold of choosing to live or choosing to die, and how soon I was going to go and how soon I was going to stay. Now, the one advantage I did have was I had had some experiences with people crossing over recently, so I knew that there was a negotiation. So in the void, I would say, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. The life I was living was not happy. I am happy. I am happy. And do you know that through cancer and through coming into the expansive, spacious space of just being, that this journey through cancer has been one of the happiest times of my life. The learnings and the love and the release of the self-judgment and self-doubt and the acceptance of all that God presented to me, everything that I have needed through this journey has been presented. Sometimes I didn't even know. It wasn't like we were saying, "Okay, God, okay, now I need a hospital bed. Okay, God, now I need oxygen. Okay, God, now I need food." Oh, the food thing was funny because one day I wasn't eating the food in the hospital, the rehab center, a whole nother story. But I had sent back breakfast and lunch because white is not a food group. And do you know that my neighbors came in with a huge bag of groceries and salads and juices, and that center, that rehab facility made an exception and put my food in the fridge, and I had good food. Nothing I wanted for nothing. When you say God knows, God knows. I wanted for nothing. Exactly what I needed showed up. Just being is a gift. Sometimes in the morning I lay here and I forget how to just be, because now I'm stronger and now I can get up and do things. And every now and again, I have to remind myself that just be is the gateway, the breath, the existence, the knowing, the true essence of who you are. There's no going to prayer, going into meditation, going into contemplation. Your very existence is the quiet, the peace. That's a piece of God. That's who you are. So the learnings have been magnificent. And just being was the first one. Just be. May you know the divine intimately. Namaste.